Hey there, music makers. Zach here, and I am super excited for you to see what this video is today. I wanted to talk about Kodaly training at some point, and then I thought, why don't I talk to someone who's gone through it just like me? And so I'm really excited today to bring to you this interview with Melissa Stouffer. She's the teacher who writes at her blog, Mrs. Stauffer's Music Room, is also very active on Teacher Pay Teacher and the different music educator Facebook groups. She presents all the time. Full disclosure, she is a good friend of mine. We've presented together a lot. We went to the same undergrad together and did our level one. Well, I did my level two. She did her level one at the same time. And I'm really excited for you to hear what she has to say and part of our discussion. So make sure you stick around the whole time. I think the point that she brings up on why Kodaly training is so helpful is super important. So make sure that you stick around for that. And then also she talks about what's new at her blog and at her store at the end. So please stick around the whole time. Now, this is my first time trying an interview thing like this. So if you like it, make sure that you like and comment that you enjoy this kind of thing. That way I know you want me to talk to influential music teachers more so that I can provide that for you. So let's get started. Hey, Melissa, thanks for coming to talk to me. We're going to talk about Kodaly training and Kodaly levels and that kind of thing. And I've done one of mine with you, but I know you have a different experience than I do. So can you just tell me a little bit about your different levels that you've done?
Sure. So I'm level 2 certified. And like you said, I did level 1 at CMU with you when you were doing level 2. And I did level 2 last summer, but it had to have been 2019. So there you go. There you go.
Right.
I did that at Portland State University with Carol Brown and Susan Brumfield. And it was a very different experience for me.
Okay.
Not that I liked it any less. And it's interesting to see different places how they handle it. So um, the thing that struck me really different um, in Portland from CMU is that in Portland it was kind of like, yeah, here, go find your songs. You have to have 50. See ya, goodbye. Where when we did our levels with joy, it was here's 50 songs that you should know, go analyze them. And
Sure.
they weren't even doing the same kind of analysis on their folk songs
Oh, okay.
that we had been doing. So like I was ahead in some steps and behind in others, which was interesting. And they kind of start the index right out of the get-go where we hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a girl who was with me who had also not done level 1 in Portland. She had done it in Missouri and they had canceled the level on her, but she was doing it as part of her master's. So they allowed her to go elsewhere. So she
Mm-hmm.
was out there with me and she had a similar experience to us at CMU. So I'm wondering if where that kind of like divide in the country kind of pops up
Right.
to be
Yeah.
different.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because I did my level one and level two at CMU. And then when I went to Indiana University to finish my level three, it mostly aligned. Like all the things that are you're supposed to have done were there, but they were in a slightly different order. So like you said, one thing that IU had me do, my presentation on like the single folk song research we had to do, I had already
Mhm.
done with level two. So I had to I got to redo it in level three. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, already did this, but it was just in a different order.
Right. Well, and Portland separates into 4 levels instead of 3 so that
Okay.
there's more time to do stuff with the research, but I think they go more in depth with the research. So it was very interesting.
Hmm.
Although one thing I really liked in Portland is the last hour of the day, everybody who was there, so level 1s, level 3s, level 4s, the last hour of the day was here's a bunch of stuff and games and dances and let's just have fun. And they called it materials and everybody just let's play and dance. And it was a blast. That was
Yeah.
probably the thing I really enjoyed because it was a huge group, which is nice. Portland State requires their music education majors to take either an ORF level or a Kodaly level as part of their music ed certification just to graduate, which I think is really neat. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it really stacks their levels with a lot of kids. And the choir's really, pretty big because you've got so many kids who are there taking it just so they can graduate. So that's kind of really nice. And
Sure.
that was
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah, you missed that when you were doing level 1 and I was doing level 2, the groups were both smaller. When I did level 1, it was a fairly large group, so we did more stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, the second year I did it, I missed out on that. But yeah, like you, IU, it just had a huge, I thought, crazy huge program with lots of people. I know we had 8 alone in level, I think it was 8 or 9 in level 3, which I guess was like a lot or something. Um, so, but the other levels were just jam packed with people. We had so many people to do stuff with. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you kind of talked about like materials and folk dancing and analysis and that kind of thing. So, can you tell me the different things you did in your Kodaly levels? I know there's different classes, but what did you do for your different classes there?
Oh, so the classes we had our just methodology. We had our, solfege, ear training, which I thought was interesting too, was even presented differently there, because there it was kind of like, yeah, you got to do some stuff with the piano and you singing. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
I'm not a piano player. You didn't tell me to bring a piano
interesting.
to have to practice, and I can't get into the practice room. So this helps me how?
Hmm.
That was very interesting, and that was actually a really big sticking point with a lot of the people, because they're like, I don't have piano to practice,
Oh,
and we don't
mm-hmm.
have practice room keys,
Right.
and so that was interesting. So I would recommend, if you're going to Portland State for levels, buy yourself one of those little roll-up keyboards, which I
Yeah.
bought, and then 2020.
Yeah.
Um, so I would definitely, if you're going to a level, and that I didn't know those existed until somebody's like, yeah, you can get one on Amazon. And by that point it was too late. I was already like, it was
Yeah.
past the point where I could buy one on Amazon and it would get there in time.
Right.
So it didn't happen, but that was there. And then we actually had a separate class just for folk songs, which was
Mm-hmm.
with Carol Brown. And if you do not know who Carol Brown is, like, I could have literally just sat and listened to her talk for 10 hours a day and it wouldn't have been enough. Like, this woman is probably the smartest person on the planet, kind of like mind boggling,
Yeah.
knows everything. And we didn't even really spend a lot of time on folk songs in class, but a lot of the stuff we talked about were the ballads, and we were looking at how they were kind of transformed into other songs and variations, and getting into all of that, like, in-depth
Oh,
kind of.
wow.
Yeah, it was so interesting. Like, if you could just literally, like, I wish Carol would literally just go online and talk for hours and hours. Like, I would pay her to just go listen to her talk
Right.
about all of this stuff, because she knows so much. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Right.
And that was actually my favorite class, was the hour we had with Carol, because I feel like I walked out of there with like pages and pages and pages and pages of notes, just like scribbling as much as I could. Um, and then we had the methodology, and we had choir. So it
Cool.
was definitely a little different how it was set up.
Set up, but it still had all those same pieces. It had like the
Yes.
methodology, teaching, like the actual active
Oh,
teaching,
and conducting.
and conducting. Yeah.
Yeah, because level 2 and 3 and 4 had conducting together.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's interesting. Our folk song, our materials class was back to back with the methodology. So sometimes they blended into one another, but the way that we looked at the analysis, it was very, very practical and less like historical, I guess. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say, is that yours was really like historical and like the variations and that kind of
in a
thing, or
way, because like the folk song class was more about all of the historical things, but we did talk about analysis and how to, like,
yeah.
do it practical and stuff. It was very much like Carol came in with a topic. This is what our topic is today, and here's what we're doing. So one day it was totally just analyzing and how you look at,
Hmm.
tetrachords and all of that sort of stuff, which was funny because I already had done that for Joy.
Yeah.
But then other days it would just be like, here's a bunch of like amazing things, and let's look at all these different songs and recordings, and it was really
Cool.
neat. So
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Right. And it was
So
interesting having two people teach those courses because Susan was not teaching us any of that. Like Susan would teach us like the practical methodology, sit down and go, topic by topic. Like this is how you do dough. This is how you prep for it. This is what it looks like. Let's talk about it. Here's some songs for it. And it was very much that where Carol was running like on a completely parallel line that they weren't really crossing. So it was kind
oh
of interesting in
yeah,
a neat way.
that would be interesting. Yeah, at IU, our methodology, Nissa Brown taught both our methodology part and then the folk song part. And like I said, they were back to back, so it felt like they
Yeah.
kind of ran together sometimes, but they each had their own purpose.
Right.
Right.
That's kind of like with Joy. It was
Right.
very sort of together.
Yeah. Now, in your methodology, did you have to like teach sample lessons like we did at level 1?
Not really.
Okay.
We did get a little bit more into like, let's talk about how you would practice and just kind of share different, like it did, but it wasn't like a go write a lesson. We did have to write lessons for Susan, but we didn't have to perform them for the class.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
there was that.
how many people were in your level 2?
8?
8. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 8, and then there were like 5 or so in level 3. I want to say maybe not that many, and then there were 2 who were level 4.
Okay. So do you know, I mean, I don't know how much you know about their program. I know that to be Kodaly certified, you have to, like, it has to require like 150 folk songs collected. At Portland, do they do 200 because it's over 4? Oh, okay. Because most
Yeah, so
programs,
it's 200, and then you have to do some teaching videos with you back at school
yeah,
and write up and then bring those in, and then some the whole research thing, which is more intense, I guess,
right, yeah.
because
We
it's the separate.
Yeah, we had to do like we had to do all that stuff. I think that's standard for pretty much every to be Kodai certified anyway by Oak. Um
Yes.
yeah, so it's the 150 folk songs you have to have analyzed, which is sounds scary at first, but for some of the songs it takes like 2 seconds to analyze. And
Yeah.
and
Snail.
yeah, it's like
Oh.
woohoo. Yeah,
Right.
and then you have to do some conducting. Did you do any conducting really in your level 2?
Yes, we had the conducting class, so we would, have to get up and conduct, and our very
Right.
scary Hungarian teacher taught it. And
Right.
yeah, and then some of the level 3s and 4s got lucky enough to have to conduct on the concert too. So
Right. That's what I had to do for level 3. We had conducting class, and like the 1s and 2s did get to come up and conduct, but for the concert it was level 3s were conducting the pieces for the
yeah,
most part, which was really intimidating because that was also, I think it was the 50th anniversary of something, maybe when Kodai, when year was that? Was that 2000? That was 2017. So that would have been the 50th year of his death, I think.
okay,
So they went all hardcore on like pieces written by Kodai himself. And so we had to do a bunch of Hungarian singing, which was
and that is
super
not the
fun.
easiest.
No, and we had to teach the songs to the other music teachers in Hungarian, and it's like, ooh, and we did a whole bunch of
Wow.
these crazy canons that someone wrote and dedicated to Kodai, I think, and it was crazy, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, were you, so you're in you teach like everything, or you've taught everything basically, not just elementary.
Yeah. So I've taught since I've, okay, so including student teaching, I've taught infants. Like I had an infant 6-week-old show up in my infant room class, which I taught in a Montessori where they had an infant room. So I would go in, twice a week and, just fun stuff. And they went with the toddler class. So, they'd kind of get to know me and they'd have fun and just getting them moving and singing. And they had a bunch with that. So I have literally had a 6-week-old. And I taught lots and lots of preschoolers. I've taught K through 8 general music, 3rd through 5th grade choir. I also had a choir at one point that was 1st through 7th grade. That was painful. Um,
Yeah, that'd be rough.
I have done 6th through 8th grade band. I've done 5th through 8th grade band. I started a band program on a cart with no budget. I started a middle school choir program, and I student taught with high schoolers.
Yeah. So
So
you were kind of comfortable with conducting going into your levels?
yeah, which is really funny because so for those of you who don't know us, we went to Central where Nina Nash Robertson was the choir director, and she's this amazing little Irish woman who is just kind of like a little spitfire and fabulous. When I had to conduct for her in my methods courses in college, I was always a disaster. I was nervous. I hated doing it. I didn't give good preps, nothing. It was just disaster. And as soon as I got in front of, kids instead of, fellow music majors staring me down and judging me, I was fine. So conducting has not been something I feel like I'm nervous with unless I'm on the spot in front of other music teachers, which is hilarious because I've got all this conducting experience in my teaching life. And then you put me in a room full of other music teachers at a Kodaly Levels course, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah. Because I know a lot of people, when they like look into the Kodaly training, they get kind of scared away by the conducting piece. But most of the people, in my experience, like they're elementary music teachers, so they don't have a ton of conducting experience. Everybody's kind of in the
right.
same boat.
I feel like it's hard to um when you don't know all the people. Like I like the conducting at Portland State is great because you don't do it really until your second year because they have an extra methods class for the first levels, which
Okay.
is kind of neat. um but I went in with the kind of problem of I didn't know everybody from level 1, so I didn't have that
Right.
kind of thing. But I think for a lot of other people it maybe took a little bit of pressure off because they knew each other a little bit already. So
Yeah, that probably did too. I noticed that switching into level 3, and my level 3 colleagues are like, they're amazing people. They're so cool. And they took me in like right away, no problem. But yeah, I was nervous switching programs too. But
yeah.
still, by the end of those 2 weeks, I don't know about you, the people that I did it with, I just felt so connected with, and I still talk to them, and
Yes.
they're just awesome resources.
Yeah, I love the people I took level 2 with, and even the people who were in level 3 and 4, I talked to some of them. In fact, when I was at the Oak Conference in March, which actually was in Portland, and I had not intended on going, and then I'm like, oh, it's Portland. Of course I'm going.
Yeah, I
I
should
spent
probably
most
go.
of my time there with them, so it
Right.
was kind of fun.
That's
No,
cool.
I was pretty bummed I didn't get to see him this summer. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, I loved my experience with levels. It sounds like you did too, but what would you
oh
say to
my gosh.
someone, who says, I'm just going to go to a couple workshops and get my Kodai fix there? Like what's the benefit of doing the more expensive and serious levels as opposed to
So,
something
okay, so
else?
this is like a huge thing for me. Um, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I'm going to back up and talk about what I taught. So most of my jobs have been through a program in Michigan called Share Time, where basically I'm employed by the public school district and they get money for the students that I see because I see them in private schools, but somehow it helps with funding. I don't know how it works. I know that everybody benefits out of it. So it's been something that like the private and the public schools all love, and I'm okay with that. So it gets me paid and I had a job. And the thing is I was in all of these schools that had really no materials, no curriculum, maybe, a parent had been teaching that wasn't certified and they were like a kinder music person. So the kids were just like singing and not really doing anything about literacy or anything. And the biggest thing for me was that there were no materials. So there's the whole kind of like,
Hmm.
oh, your field instruments. That's great. And you can engage kids that way really quickly, except if you don't have it and you don't have the funds for it, it doesn't really do you any good. And I know I've seen things about how you can do stuff for ORF without the instruments. At some point, that's going to get old for the kids. And having a system in place where you can help them with literacy so that at some point, if they want to go join a garage band, they know how to do something. If they want to sing in church, if they want to, go be in a play and they have to sing a little bit. Things like that are probably a lot more applicable than learning to play an instrument and scaffold ideas based on that. Now, there's definitely things about the creative process that I'm not trying to take away from. That's a fabulous thing, and I'm actually guilty of not doing that enough. I like writing patterns with kids often, but I don't let them just like, go be creative. I need to do more of that. However, I feel like giving them the tool that they can, that literacy tool, if they are a creative person and that's something they're crave, they're going to do that. They're going to find ways to do that. But giving them that literacy really helps them kind of go out into the future and just make more of it.
Right.
For me, that levels training, even though it had that cost up front, I'd had all of these like kind of things I'd bought, and like, here's a Kodaly book. It kind of gives you a curriculum. Like, I'm in schools that had no curriculum, and I have like a curriculum guide from the public school district, but I don't have any of the materials that I can really make it work. So for me, I was writing my own curriculum and kind of trying to come up with stuff. And I see this all the time where there's people kind of looking for like, what can I do? I don't have anything to
Right.
do. Do you have an activity I can do with my kids? I need an activity
Yes.
for my kids. I need an
Mm-hmm.
activity for my kids. And if you're just doing activity after activity after activity, first of all, you're kind of always looking for that next big thing that's going to, rope them in. And that's difficult because at some point they're just going to get over it. It's going to start kind of seeming the same all the time. And that's not going to help. And they're not really showing that they can scaffold ideas and apply learning in a really, really structured way. So the thing I also love about going and taking a levels course is this is the whole thing of how you do it. Do it this way. Okay. So then your admin comes in and they go, what are you doing? Okay, well, there's this. My third graders are actually ahead of where they should be because they got onto these, topics really well, but my second graders are struggling a little bit with this. We're going back and we're doing this, and you can show them what they're doing. It's something that you can take and just plop and say, this is the curriculum I'm following. It might not be completely on track, but here you go. Oh, we want to add in something so that we can do a performance. That's okay. Oh, we want to add in, something to stop and make sure we are taking time to be creative. And you have that. But then you also can turn around to admins and school boards and whoever else and show them exactly what you have plotted out. And not only that, but you can do a lot more for your curriculum with a lot less if you go and take a levels course. Buying instruments isn't cheap if your district can't afford it, or if you were like me where you couldn't use donors choose. I'm never going to get
Yeah.
those instruments to go do this. So that was something for me, and that was my biggest thing, is it gave me a real kind of purpose to my program and how to
Right.
really get it there.
Yeah, it's like for me it's like you get, on the one hand you get all these practical songs and activities and instruction, and like these, like you can take it and go teach, and it's a fully fleshed out curriculum that people have been working on for decades now, basically. But then you're taught how to think so that if you want to adapt and change, you can do that too to fit your
Yeah.
students' specific needs.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, I remember buying an American methodology for like a kind of like an intro to Kodaly course that I took in my undergrad,
Hmm.
and just kind of being overwhelmed by it and like going in there and going, okay, there's some good songs, but I didn't really know what to do with it.
Right.
That's the other thing too, is a lot of the curriculums, if that's something that you're looking at and using for your songs and how you do things with your kids, having that book for years and using it as a teacher for years and just kind of skimming the surface. After I took
Right.
level one, I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. And it
Right.
just, that was a big, huge thing for me.
Hmm.
And even just knowing how to deal with some of the kindergarten concepts and get those kids kind of
Right.
on track. Oh, so different after having taken just level one. I
Right.
mean, even if you're not sure and you're not, I mean, I know a lot of people go and take a level of ORF, a level of Kodaly, or whatever else they can
Right.
get into, just because it helps give you a really good purpose and a lot more structure than we ever got in undergrad.
Right. And that you can, I think it gives you more structure and purpose and understanding than you can get from like a workshop or even a conference.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A workshop is wonderful, and you get some things that you can take back immediately. But if you don't have that training to back you up, you're not going to really know how to fit it in with your program, and it's just going to become another activity.
Right. Yeah. And the understanding is just too big. And it's, I mean, I tell people that they should at least get level 1 just for that, the structure and understanding. Level 2 and 3 were awesome and I loved it, but it just enhanced my understanding of the principles of Kodai rather than like, I didn't learn like, oh, this is completely new now. This was something they were holding back for level 3. No, it was like here's a way to further this Kodai principle with a complicated concept.
I absolutely agree. I think that level 1 for me was more kind of life changing than level
It's like
2, because
light bulb.
level 1 just opened up all this stuff that I had been sitting on, like books I got, on music teachers buy, sell, trade for, half price or whatever. Like it just really gave some structure to what I was doing. And I wasn't just going, oh, okay, what do I have to do with my third graders this week?
Right.
Okay, this song looks fun, let's do this. And you can always find ways to just, here's a song, here's a song, here's
Yeah.
a song. And you could teach like that for forever, because there's a million songs and activities and dances and everything else you could do.
Right.
But once you have that structure, it takes away so much of that, what do I do next week?
Right. Yeah, it gives the purpose and the intention. And you don't have to give up the songs you love or give up the different teaching tools. It just kind of it provides a framework to kind of guide your instruction.
Right. I mean, and we, we always joke about the Kodaly Police. Like,
Right.
they're not going to care if your kids are in the wrong spot on the wrong, year. Oh, it's week 4 of October and you haven't gotten there yet. How dare you? That's, I stopped my entire curriculum at the beginning of May just because my kids had a performance at the end of the month, and I needed them
Right.
ready. I know lots of people have to do that, and that's something that we can use. There's also the whole idea that whatever you're performing, I mean, even if you're doing this with like middle school band, whatever you're doing, you can still teach concepts out of that literature. It doesn't have to be, here's your 150 or 200 folk songs, take them. These are the only songs you can use.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's so not what it was meant to be. So
No.
use what you actually have in your literature, and you don't have to go back. I mean, if I'm picking the songs that I got out of a Music K-8 program as how I'm teaching my kids different concepts, okay,
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. Totally agree. So is there anything else you want to say about Kodai training in general?
Do it.
Do it. Just do it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of amazing.
Oh, you also, if for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't know, Melissa has a teacher pay teacher store, Mrs. Stouffer's music room, and all kinds of good stuff. What big things are you working on right now?
Oh, okay. So actually, if you go over to my blog, which is mrsstoffersmusicroom.com, I just did a blog post called The Ultimate Music Ed Book List. And this took me forever. And I'm actually still working on it because it's never gonna ever end. Um, but it links you to a Google spreadsheet that's got like over 1,400 books and like how you might use them in the music classroom, and links to them, and what they might be used for. And
Right.
yeah, and if you have any that you really love that you don't see on there, you can submit to that too. So, and that is free for anybody who wants to go look at it. If you just go to
Yeah.
www.theultimatemusicedbooklist.com, it'll take you there.
Yeah, I'll put that in the description when I do all this
Thanks.
jazz fancy stuff. Ooh. All right, cool. Well, thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming to talk about Kodai training and stuff like that.
Oh gosh, of course. It was fun to chat with you.
Always is. We work together a lot, and I always love it.
Yeah, me
Right.
too.
Yeah. Thanks.
Take care.